top of her car, and you have to imagine she was very thankful for those guys to come out and help her.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for joining us here for Weather Center Live. I'm Alex Wilson.
And I'm Dave Schwartz. I hope that never happens to you. You know, slow it down when it's raining. And days of rain are ahead for millions of Americans. We'll show you the problem areas, how much rain we can expect. But first, we have active storms that could cause flash flooding happening right now.
And we're already seeing these 45-mile-per-hour winds. So you were talking at the beginning of the hour, in case people didn't see it, a lot of people wondering, well, why don't we have a tropical storm watch or really warning, because this is going to start impacting us tonight.
Yeah, the winds are going to pick up here late this evening on the Texas coast up here, and some of the winds may gust up to tropical storm strength.
Right.
So if this were a tropical depression or a tropical storm, there would be warnings up. But the current rules say it has to be at least a tropical depression in order for them to issue those advisories. Now, there's talk at the National Hurricane Center about changing those rules, just like they changed the Sandy problem. Remember, they didn't put up hurricane warnings for Sandy because they didn't think it was going to be a hurricane, technical hurricane when it came ashore. Now they've changed that. So that wouldn't happen. So this may be the impetus to go ahead and put the rules in effect to allow them to do that, assuming they think that there will be tropical storm force winds there.
Right, because we can say you're going to see the impacts even though it's not a named
technically,
storm.
right? You do have 45-mile-an-hour winds into circulation, according to the hurricane hunters early this afternoon. They're going to go out and look before the next update, which comes at 8 o'clock tonight Eastern time, 7 o'clock Central. So we'll just keep an eye out for that, because that's what they're waiting for. They say 90% chance of it being called Tropical Storm Bill, but they're waiting for that airplane to go in there and tell them that the circulation is not still very elongated, kind of like an egg, which is what it was earlier. It was kind of like this when they went in before, not consolidated, which is what the model was showing as well. So doesn't meet the rules to be called a tropical storm.
So they're hoping in this later check that they'll see that more consolidated stuff.
Or they won't, and then it won't ever get the name. But they're giving it a 10% chance of not.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
90% chance of doing it, and it's not terribly well organized. But we're seeing a pretty good band here that's trying to wrap around, even while this band is kind of heading off that way. So it's not well consolidated by any means, and that's why we have to have the hurricane hunters do their job. Here you see the model. Look at the model. It's kind of showing an elongated center there. But the main thing with this is, look at the onshore flow here. It's pushing Gulf water up against these very vulnerable coasts in here. And look at these are wave heights offshore. Now, this is not right at the coast, but these are pretty good waves, and way out in the Gulf here, they're higher than that. So this water being pushed ashore, the Gulf is already about a foot higher than normal, and it could go another 2 feet or so higher once the peak winds come ashore overnight tonight.
Yeah, and you even mentioned over into parts of Louisiana, we've got that onshore flow.
Right.
So coastal flood warnings, coastal flood advisories, they extend all the way over.
Including here, look, east of New Orleans. Now they've put up this coastal flood warning for the western parts of Louisiana, and this is like 4 to 8 o'clock in the morning when the peak tide is going to come in there. So that's like early morning rush hour. So some of those coastal areas could be flooded. Also, the extreme right at the coast, Highway 87 there on the Bolivar Peninsula, they've actually issued a not mandatory, voluntary evacuation, because they have had some overwash there on that peninsula there. So
yeah, and if you live in the area you're familiar, you might just want to save yourself the hassle and just get out while you can.
Right. Now here's the deal. 3 o'clock in the morning, the center is somewhere here just about coming ashore, and already there's some rain in the Houston area. Now, this does not look like a repeat of the Memorial Day situation, but the models are showing some spots with very heavy rain all the way up into the middle of the country. So definitely this is a flood threat, but I don't think...
You know, Houston, Texas is just one of the cities in Texas and Oklahoma that could be first to see dangerous flooding this week. Our Mike Bettis is live in Houston, Texas. Mike, what are you hearing? Who are you talking to? What's happening?